Yes, everybody, hope you're all doing fantastically well. Slightly different one from me today. We're talking Radrizzani, we're talking Parag Marathe's interview. Absolutely buzzing, really, with what I've heard this morning. Not buzzing when referencing Andrea Radrizzani at this moment in time. Obviously, did an interview with Sky Sports this morning discussing just waffling, really, about how he shouldn't have, trusted Victor Orta all the way, and he's proud of what he did at Leeds United in terms of a commercial entity and an entity in general, and all this waffle. Once again, just sort of like absolving himself of all criticism, but, saying that lessons have been learnt and all this sort of stuff. I just don't really understand this guy's projection, what his expectation is of that interview once again. I will never get inside this guy's mind, and I'm absolutely buzzing with not having to do that over a longer period of time, which I feel like I've had to do for the past 2 to 3 to 4 years, really. It was an interview where Rads was essentially speaking about the next step for him and how he's learned things and all this sort of stuff, and contrasting that with the Parag Marathe interview was such a correlation, really, because this interview with Paraag wasn't all about himself. It was about the future of Leeds United, and I always felt with Rads it was about himself and I. But this was about the future of Leeds United, the mistakes in the past, the fact that he really couldn't make decisive decisions with being the minority shareholder, and the 49ers enterprise has been the minority shareholders in the Leeds United project. You had to sit back, and Parag said that he made notes on essentially how not to do things, which I found absolutely fascinating. He said that the best chairmans in the world are the chairmans that don't speak much. We all know that. The best chairmans in the world are the ones that don't speak much. It can, contrary to that, it can also be the worst chairmans as well, who don't speak much, when we're looking at sort of like Mike Ashley, the Glazers, etc. But when you are looking at successful owners as well, there is a communication, there is a connection with the fan base, but they don't talk much. And I found it fascinating how he illustrated that point as well on the Leeds United official podcast. A lot of people are picking up on the Tyler Adams stuff as well. Essentially, I didn't pick a mass amount up from that, because he later on said that they're trying to keep hold of Leeds' best players currently. So when you look at Adams, you look at Sinisterra. AS Colombia were reporting last night that apparently Sinisterra has had a change of thought, a change of mindset when it comes to staying at Leeds United for the upcoming season, and hopefully that is because of the 49ers expectation on this side. They're just talking. It's not if, it's when we get back to the Premier League, and I think that's going to convince anybody to stick around, because Sinisterra will have built a home for himself, as will have Tyler Adams, William Yonto, and they'll, the upheaval of moving jobs and doing this, that and the other in football is a massive task. A lot of these footballers have kids, families, that they're enrolled in schools, and their families have got used to the areas and all this sort of stuff. They don't want constant upheaval, and signing a long-term contract, which all of these boys have done when you're looking at Alonso, Sinisterra and Tyler Adams. The projection was to be there for a long time at Leeds and to achieve things with Leeds. So I think when the 49ers are using the terminology that they are doing, which is about when we're back and the bigger project, we all know that Andrea Radrizzani said this. We all know, he said this. But what I liked about what Parag was talking about was the management structure, and an efficient management structure. And before Leeds United, Radrizzani had a management structure at a media company. Let's be right, the San Francisco 49ers are a massive franchise in the US, and they've also been transformed from 2001 since Paraag and his consortium came in and changed everything from the Levi's Stadium to everything on the pitch and off the pitch, comprising that as well. So there's evidence there that they've taken hold of a sleeping giant and made them back to the glory days, back to where they used to be, in a sense. So that is very, very encouraging. Rad's never had that, so he was talking in the clouds, really. There was no real evidence that he'd done it before. So that's why I'm really enthused, because these guys have done it in probably one of the most heavily invested sports in the world, if not the most heavily invested sport in the world. The NFL is worth so much money. So, yeah, they've mastered that, and that gives me a lot of encouragement that they can master this. They can master the championship. He's a shrewd negotiator. He is the contract guy. That's what Paraag was and is at the 49ers, and he was saying that he was going to take a keen interest in that at Leeds United. Now, that could be incorporating a lot of loans in the Leeds United sphere. It could also be getting involved in big player signings. There's been chat about Glenn Kamara, which would be an unbelievable signing at $4 million. I've spoken to a Rangers fan this morning who I've worked with, and he said for $4 million you're getting an absolute steal there. Now, we spoke yesterday about getting Ethan Ampadu for around about 10 million quid. That's another steal. So they're negotiating at a really shrewd level. And when he's talking about maybe certain individuals coming in and then working around those guidelines, the EFL guidelines when it comes to financial fair play and all this sort of stuff, the EFL's, ramification when it comes to going outside that bracket, what he's basically saying is, they're going to be aggressive in every single market. They're going to be aggressive in the loan market and the transfer market, which is really encouraging to see as well. Now, as I say, really, I'm more bothered about what goes on the pitch, but when we're talking about off the pitch, that's a big thing as well. Spoke about Daniel Farke, wanted to know about the person Daniel Farke, wanted to know about his style, empathy. He wanted to, get a lot of things that aren't tangible from him, qualitative things. The quantitative things are he's won the championship twice at a canter with a very undervalued and underappreciated squad at the start of the season. But the qualitative things are big for Parag Marathe and the 49ers enterprises too, which is, when you've got empathy, when you've got that level of connection with the players, it also means that your communication skills are probably on a high level in terms of, you've been able to deal with the ownership, you've been able to deal with staff at the club and create a good feel. That's also those qualitative measures which make a really, really good manager. And apparently Daniel Farke stood out on that front, as well as obviously the quantitative measures, him winning the championship twice and not being backed, which I found interesting. Parag said when we get back to the Premier League, he will be backed. So all of this phraseology, this terminology, is things that's given us real hope as Leeds United fans. I never heard Radrizzani talk about being massively aggressive in the transfer market. It was always, in my opinion, there was always a bit of a byproduct there of Leeds having to do X, Y, and Z before we are, doing things in the transfer market. And that, harks back to the interview with Radrizzani, when Radrizzani's essentially saying that he put too much trust in Victor Orta. Paraag said that, if someone wasn't doing the job well at Leeds, they're out the door. That's what he said in the interview. So they are taking this as a big project. For me as well, during the interview, he told us this, so we're going to have to see the proof in the pudding, but he's from a middle-class background. Hark Jesse Marsh, with all the middle-class background stuff when he came into Leeds United and relating to the club. But Paraag has said that he's made his way up. He's not one of these fifth-generation multi-billionaires who's using Leeds United as like an American hobby horse, which we see in the Premier League all the time. He's someone who wants to invest his time, his money, his efforts in Leeds United, and he wants to get this back. And they've got some massive investors. We spoke about Michael Phelps last night, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, to name a few. McConnell as well. These massive American stars who are now invested in Leeds United, who can really flourish. They can really, and we've seen it with Wrexham, haven't we? It's on a different sort of level, but in terms of globalising Leeds United, Parag was talking about the club being the third, fourth biggest city in the country. We speak an uncut diamond, which we speak about all the time. The fact that Leeds United haven't been invested in, and teams like Newcastle have, and Leeds, the fourth biggest city in the country, a massive fan base, haven't been invested in by, multi-billionaires, is still baffling to me. It's an untouched gem. It really, really is. And the 49ers seem to recognise that. And Parag was speaking on that earlier on. So it's massively positive signs for me. Listening to that interview, it's realistic. They want to be aggressive, and we know with the American way of doing things, they are ultra competitive. So we're going to get that from them, which is really, really encouraging from my standpoint. Looking forward to everything. I'm actually more enthused now than I was a week ago, obviously. Ethan Ampadu hopefully going to be coming through the door. You're looking at Nat Phillips, Glenn Kamara, but on top of that, keeping some of our top stars. Emmanuel Dennis has been mentioned as well. All positive signs for Leeds United. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you haven't checked out the interview, make sure you do. If you want to check out us on TikTok, we're posting every day. Patreon account, check out that for bonus content, and I'll see you in a bit.